Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Jen and Sharon. I am Jen.
I'm Sharon.
And we are editors at yourteenmag.com. We have some fun stuff to talk about today. We're heading into a holiday weekend. I don't know about where you live, but the weather's getting nice. So we didn't really feel like today was the day to talk about anything too heavy. But also this is on my mind because it's been in my Facebook feed constantly. Prom. Are you seeing prom pictures?
Oh, yeah. So my oldest is a freshman, so there's no prom in our house yet. But I'm seeing all the pictures. I think last Friday, our local public school, and I think some of the other schools had prom as well. So I'm seeing all the pretty pictures.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say I'm so excited for these kids that they got a prom, because I know last year many of your kids got cheated out of prom, and that's really a shame. If they wanted to go, that's very sad. So I'm happy that they had proms. Some people had proms this year. Also, I know there's some schools that weren't planning on having prom, but then they did because they could, but it was sort of impromptu. If you
Oh,
that was bad. I'm sorry. I'll show myself out later. But what I like about that is I've seen a bunch of posts of people who said, my kid at the very last minute decided they're going to prom, or they're having a prom, so they had to get creative about what they were wearing to prom. And I kind of thought that's really nice, because it took a little bit of the pressure off of getting the right outfit. And it made me think about how different it was when I went to prom versus what the expectations are now. And I feel like it's almost like getting ready for a wedding. Some girls, mostly girls, I think, they get ready hours and hours in advance with the hair and the makeup. Yeah. They do more to get ready for prom than I did for my wedding, which admittedly was not a lot. So the bar was low there, but I just thought it was kind of made me think about like how things are quite different, and not necessarily bad, but just different. So what are some of your observations? Well, first of all, wait, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you describe in detail, please, your prom dress, if you had one?
One second. So I want to invite our viewers to tell us whether you have a kid going to prom, or whether they missed their prom. Weigh in. We want to hear what's going on where you are, and tell us where you are too.
Yes, we'd like to hear that.
My prom dress, I brought a goodie with me, Jen.
Oh, you did? I love show and tell.
Not an actual prom dress, unfortunately. That's long gone. But I had a suspicion that somebody on Facebook had shared a prom picture within the last couple of years. So I looked through my Facebook photos, because they would have tagged me. And indeed, there was a photo of prom.
Oh, let's see photos. Let's see.
I'm gonna attempt to share this, people. Okay. All right.
You are brave.
This is new. Let's see if I can do it. Share a screen. Oh, there you see me. Us? Can you see that?
I can't see what you're sharing, so
dang it. Oh, you know why? Why? This is very sad, everybody. I think it's because it's not on the internet. I saved it as a photo. Can I share it as a photo? I'm going to have to share it later. Okay, so I will describe for you.
Okay, and you'll put it in the comments later so everybody can see your prom dress.
I will, because apparently I can't screen share it because it's an actual photo. It's a photo of 5 of us girls sitting at the table with our dates standing behind, and you can only see the top part of my dress, and that's enough. So it is a deep teal. Teal seemed to be a color that was very popular at the time. I graduated in 93.
Okay.
So it was an off-the-shoulder number, very shiny teal, with, detailing across the top. And then it was like this fit and flare, poofy tealness.
That's beautiful compared to what I had. Continue.
Well, maybe. But of course, I had the dyed to match shoes.
You had like the full-on bridesmaid look is what you had going.
Well, I'm interested to find out regional differences, Jen, because I know you went to school where we live now in Ohio. Right. And I grew up in New Jersey, and I have a suspicion that there were some differences.
I bet the hair was bigger in New Jersey. I bet there was a lot of teasing of hair.
We were I had this very severe kind of updo. You'll see when I post the picture.
Can't wait.
So, and then, the person that that posted, it was my prom date, and he threatened to post a picture of us standing next to each other so that you could see the dress in the full glory. And I threatened him. That was enough.
Did he have a matching cummerbund? And
Oh, yes, he had a
okay.
teal. He had a teal bow tie.
You had
He
it
had
all
the whole
going
thing.
on.
He did.
That's awesome. Yeah.
What about you, Jen?
I don't see a lot of that anymore. Well, okay, so I was a sort of an oddball kid. I didn't do what all of my peers were doing, which was they actually purchased dresses. This was the 80s, the mid 80s. And so there was a lot of puffy sleeves, and Laura Ashley was big then. Gunny Sacks was a brand. Look it up, kids. Don't recommend. But I went shopping in my parents' attic and found a lovely, and it really was lovely, dress that had been my mom's from the late 50s, early 60s. And it was totally different from anything anybody else was wearing. And I'm sure it drew looks for all the wrong reasons. But I actually loved that dress. I wish I still had it. I don't know what happened to it. It probably disintegrated. But yeah, the look back then was big hair, because it was the 80s, big sleeves, and still the matching, you had to match something with your prom date. So my dress was pink, so my prom date's cummerbund was pink. I'm sure he was thrilled to wear a pink cummerbund with his tuxedo. Irv, he's still my friend. God bless you. Thank you, Irv. You're the best.
Deborah's on your side, Jen.
Yeah, loved Gunny Sacks. Oh, Deborah, if you have pictures, please post them. We'd love to see.
Yeah, so we can post pictures on Facebook, right? Like people
can post them.
Yeah. I hope so.
I hope so. Drop them in the comments later. But so anyway, I've just noticed that nowadays, is there any word that makes you sound older than nowadays?
These days,
they look so much more sophisticated and put together. I know on the inside, there's still the deeply insecure adolescents that we were, but they don't show it. I don't see any acne. I don't see any glasses in prom photos typically. I don't see like bad hair. Everybody looks perfectly put together. I would be so intimidated to go to prom with any of these kids. They're not like they're a different species from me. But I love that they look great. I mean, I don't think they look inappropriate in any way. They just look a lot more sophisticated than we knew how to rock that look.
Everything is sleeker these days. There's no giant bows, and I don't know. I mean, you look at the way the kids are dressed, and you think they're not going to be embarrassed of that very classy dress.
They're being cheated of the experience of being embarrassed of their prom dress years from now. The people I feel bad for, I don't know what era this was, but do you remember the high-low dresses? Those were in.
Oh, the angled, the skirt that was.
Yes, right. It was like a dress mullet. It was short in the front and long in the back.
Yeah, I thought that was 80s. I thought that would have been kind of your era.
No, I missed that, thank God. But somewhere in between, I think maybe yours and mine, or perhaps even after yours, I feel like that's a look that has had a few lives. There might even be people out there whose kids wore the high-low dress at some point. It was a thing. It came back. Like puffy sleeves came in and out. So anyway, if we're maligning anybody's prom dress here, we apologize, but that's the name of the game right now.
You know what I love about prom nowadays? It seems like it's much more common to just like go as a big group, or it's just gonna be very casual. It doesn't have to be this big date sort of thing.
I think when I went, I think you had to have a date. I think you had to. I think so. I don't think you could go stag. You could go as a group, I guess, but I don't think you could just show up solo. It seemed like there were some rules about it that seemed outdated to me. But now I think that's one thing I do like about prom now versus then. Much more inclusive. You can have a date or not a date. Your date can be the same gender you are or a different gender. There's not the rules. And I think that is the inclusivity factor. And that could vary depending on where people live. But I think generationally, they're a more inclusive generation, which I really do appreciate.
There's a lot less pressure to do it a certain way. So I had an interesting experience because I went to an all-girls school. So I didn't interact with any boys on the regular at school.
Uh-huh.
So, and many of my friends didn't either, but the ones who did interact with boys on the very regular were in the school play at the boys' school near us.
Oh, they had a little leg up on you, I guess, huh?
Well, they actually made arrangements for our dates for all of us. I hadn't met my date before. Well, I met him, I think, before the prom, but I didn't know him. And we certainly didn't arrange it for ourselves, but we had a couple of enterprising friends who said, oh, we know all these guys. They seem like nice guys and they're friends with each other. And my friends are friends with each other. So we're going to set up like 6 girls that we know with these 6 guys. And
perfect.
We'll just all go, we'll share a limo because in New Jersey, limos were normal. Were they normal in Ohio when you?
No. We went in my friend's beat up van. It looked like we were arriving in the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine. I think the normal was you borrowed whatever car was the nicest car in somebody's family that you knew, and you just showed up. We all drove ourselves, which I think that's also not the best. I think I like better now that they tend to get either going on an Uber together or an Uber Black if you're really fancy.
Uber. Oh, I didn't even think of Uber for prom.
Right. Yeah. One of my kids went to prom in an Uber. Maybe they both did. Actually, I think they both did. And then other times, some people have like a big gathering at their house before a big group of kids goes down, and the parents will throw down together on a party bus, which that was not a thing in my day. There was no such thing as a party bus. Like if there was a school bus, maybe that would be, you die of humiliation if you showed up at prom in a school bus, but that was different. You just had to get your own way there.
Yes, well, appreciation. It is perfect because you once you say it, you can't not know what we're talking about with the dress.
Exactly. So here's something that's different too, is the promposal. That didn't exist back in the day. I'd love to hear if anybody on our call has had experience with their kids having a promposal anxiety, either because they had to be the asker or the recipient. Like you said, my experience was more like maybe somebody would broker the deal for you and say,
yes,
my friend's Kevin's son, cousin is going to call you and see if you want to go to prom. Are you going to say yes? And then you would say yes or no. And then they'd be like, okay, he'll ask you tomorrow at lunch. I mean, nobody showed up at my house with a cake saying, will you go to prom with me? That just didn't happen.
My mom, who might be watching, tells the story when she was in high school in the 50s. Hi, Mom. One of her teachers said to everybody in the class, all right, who doesn't have a date for prom yet? and wants to go or is interested in going or something. I don't remember. But he said, all of you come out in the hall with me. And he said, you go with you. How about that? You go with you.
Oh my gosh.
And they took the pressure off for like kids who were too shy or I don't know. But apparently it worked out.
It was like Match.com back in the day. We have a couple more comments. Do you want to show anything?
Yeah. Promposal caused lots of anxiety for 2 boys. So Deborah, you have 2 sons. Did they do promposals? Did they have to? Does it not count? Does the girl think you won't care?
He says they both were creative and it all worked out. So that's a phew, glad to hear it. But yeah, maybe put in the comments later if you can share, because we want to be respectful of our kids' privacy. But like, what did they do or how did they go about it? Because I've seen some really interesting ones. Like I saw somebody do it.
Yeah.
Like somebody was in the girl's garage when she came home from school. I mean, that would just scare the bejabbers out of me. I hope somebody gave her a heads up. By the way, when you open your garage door, there's a boy and there was a bunch of balloons asking you to prom. That is.
We had I saw one on an overpass once, like a sheet hung over. So and so, will you go to prom with me? We had one on our street. Like there were signs down our street. This wasn't, neither the boy or the girl lived on our street. But he had set up, I don't know. he had set up, because we asked around, because the neighborhood text activates. Like, what's going on with all these signs? We have the group text that always is on alert for what's happening, especially with the kids. So everyone was saying, who is this? And somebody knew who it was and wasn't part of our neighborhood. But apparently he drove her around town and drove her, just randomly, I guess he wanted to surprise her, drove up our street and asked her to prom with signs. So interesting.
I mean, the pressure, the planning, the creativity that is put on some of these kids is mind-boggling to me. I mean, really, it was just, I think most boys that I knew in my era who went to prom probably gave it about 30 seconds of thought, and they probably got ready for prom about 10 minutes before we went. It was just, the bar was just a lot lower, and maybe that was easier.
Yeah, but I mean, doesn't it seem better though? Like, why is there so much importance put on who you're asking to prom? And it almost seems to me, of course, I'm someone whose kids haven't gotten to this point yet. Maybe it's just silly, good fun, but is it performative? Like, is it so we can show off on social media, or she can say, "Look what he did," or is it to impress other people more than it is about asking that person?
I think that could be the case sometimes. That would be interesting to hear other people's perspective on that. If anybody has a thought, weigh in, because we're curious to know. Yeah, definitely.
Like actual marriage proposals, that could be.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's just the pressure. So yeah, we're really interested to hear if your kids are going to prom this year, if they're not going to prom. What are their reasonings? What are your pain points? There's just it's a very deep topic we could mine, but also being aware that some people's kids are hurting because they didn't get asked to prom, or they wanted to go to prom. And then I always feel a little bit bad when I do see all the prom pictures on social media, and I think, I mean, I love to see them, but I know that there are probably some parents who feel sad because their kid maybe didn't get asked or wanted to go and didn't have the friend group to go with or something. So I'm always a little bit aware of that too. And also, I think there's some parents who care more deeply about prom than their kids do. There might be some. It's just hypothetical. I just don't know. But there could be some parents who feel like, I'm sad my kid didn't go to prom, even though my kid didn't care. But
my husband didn't go to prom. And
yet you married him.
Well, his mom was thinking he was going to regret it. He's the oldest in his family, and I'm sure she was ready with her camera to take pictures of her little big boy with his date and all that. But he said, it's not for me. And 3 different girls asked him, and he said no to all of them.
Wow.
I know, very popular, right?
Very popular.
He's probably like, this is a nice guy. He'll probably say yes. He's so nice, but not nice enough to say yes.
Well, that's a whole other topic we could talk about, is how do you politely decline if you've been asked to any event that you don't want to go to. Like, I think we even have some articles on that at our website.
My second son was invited to senior prom as a sophomore and a junior by several girls. I didn't know at the time, but I told him I hoped he let them down gently. That is tough. I mean, teenagers don't have a lot of experience with difficult social interactions, and maybe they're just wiser than we would have been at that age. But what did they say? That I'm interested to know what they said. But I mean, I guess it is easier. So for Scott, my husband, if he said no, I'm not planning to go at all. And he told all the girls that. But what would have been bad is if he said no to one and then said yes to another one. That you can't. That's awkward, right? Because then it's personal.
Yeah, that's a whole different tricky situation. We're going to give Scott the benefit of the doubt and assume that he treated them all like a proper gentleman, that I know that he is. So, and by the way, we have some really fun and great articles about all these prom topics that is going to be in our newsletter that comes out on Wednesday evenings and tonight. So if you want to hear more about this, we'll drop it.
I'm dropping the link.
Great. So if you aren't signed up to get our newsletter and you want to hear more on this topic or other topics, we do have other topics that we talk about too.
It's actually the best way to keep in touch, because whatever is new, whatever special events we have going on, it's all kind of in the newsletter. We'll highlight what's going on in the podcast, so you can kind of skim the newsletter and see what you want to spend time on, and just hear from us regularly and get most out of your teen.
Absolutely. So we'll wrap it up there. We'd love to hear more from everybody on this topic when you feel like it, and share your pictures if you're brave.
Jen, are you going to share a picture too?
I might need to ask my prom date if I can. I still live in the same town where he lives, and he is such a wonderful guy. So
I think I'm gonna roll the dice and post it anyway.
Yeah, I think he'd be okay with it. I'm pretty sure I posted it on my Facebook page in the past, so I'll go look for it and share it at my peril. But he's a pretty understanding guy, so I think he'd be all right with it. So,
all right, everybody, we will see you next week.
Yep, have a good holiday weekend. It is a holiday that's creeping up on us, Memorial Day, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.